It's like a broken record, right? A million guys out there completely blindsided saying, life was great until it wasn't. And I'm no exception. Thought everything was peachy until it all went sideways. Hey, I'm Blake Ramsey. At 31, life felt good and satisfying. Things were going smoothly, especially with my job at Space Conquest, a division of a major aerospace company. We were working on a NASA project, creating a next-generation manned spacecraft resembling an airplane upon landing, solely for passengers. My role involved designing the escape system, ensuring each crew member had their own capsule to eject from in case of emergencies, a dream come true for a space engineer. My wife, Tracy, and I, married for 7 years, had 3 kids, Tyler, 7, and twin girls, Beth and Emily, 6. Family was my priority, balancing work with quality time. Our parents lived nearby and loved spoiling their grandkids. Tracy's sister, Lucy, was also close. We lived in a friendly neighborhood in a 4-bedroom house, planning to convert the basement into extra space as the girls grew. Tracy and I met in college, fell in love and married soon after. I pursued aerospace engineering while Tracy worked as a legal assistant. She left her job after Tyler's birth, but returned after the twins were born. As the girls started school, Tracy's behavior changed, hinting at problems in our relationship that I overlooked. Before everything went downhill, I met Tracy's boss, Stanley Cross, a few times at social events and the company Christmas party. I didn't like him. He came off as arrogant and rude, and I didn't trust him one bit. Whenever I visited Tracy at work, Cross seemed possessive and reluctant to let her leave. I kept an eye out for any signs of romance between them, but didn't notice anything at the time. Things fell apart when the twins finished kindergarten. After dropping them off at my parents' place for the weekend, I was hoping for a nice time alone with Tracy to work on our relationship. When I got home, she was dressed to the nines, looking incredibly beautiful in a short black dress, high heels, and perfect makeup. Wow, babe, you look amazing. If you had told me we were going out, I would have hurried home. Let me freshen up real quick and change, and I'll be good to go. So where are we headed? Tracy's smirk wasn't a good sign. Well, we're not going anywhere together, but I am stepping out, just not with you. I was stunned. Wait, what do you mean? I've got a date with my boss, Stanley Cross, and this is just the beginning. There are going to be some new rules starting now. Stan's picking me up for a night out, and I won't be home tonight or tomorrow. We've got a room downtown. I'll be back Sunday afternoon. What the hell are you talking about? I shouted. You need to calm down and accept it. This is how it's going to be. I'm going out, but I'll be back Sunday afternoon. Like hell! If you walk out that door, don't bother coming back. No, Blake, I'll be back. We're still married, and I'm still coming home. But you need to understand, I need more. If you make this difficult, you'll be the one leaving. It'd be a shame for our kids to see their dad broke and in jail. Now sit down, and I'll tell you about the changes. Let's do this the easy way before Stan shows up in about 30 minutes. Trust me, you won't like it if he has to explain. If that a-hole shows up in 30 minutes, he'll be leaving with a broken nose in 31. Don't do that, Blake, Tracy said firmly, for 2 reasons. First, you need to hear what he can do if you don't cooperate. And second, he'll have Max with him. Max is his bodyguard, and he's not someone you want to mess with. Touch Stan, and you'll end up in the hospital. I felt a sensation I hadn't felt since my days as a Marine in the Middle East. At first, I couldn't put my finger on it, but then it hit me. I'm being ambushed. With my wife on one side and Stanley Cross about to join the fray, I'm caught in the middle. They've got the upper hand with their pre-planning and surprise, and I'm not sure how to defend myself. I brushed past Tracy and headed upstairs. Where are you going? Tracy demanded. We need to talk. I'm going to freshen up real quick. Be down in 5. During my time in the Middle East, I'd been ambushed 3 times. I had a few rules for dealing with ambushes. First, try to spot it before you're caught. But with Tracy and Stanley, I didn't see it coming. Second, find cover fast. That's why I was making a beeline for my bedroom. And the third rule, come up with an escape plan for you and your team. I needed a plan. So I made one. First, I changed out of my suit into something more casual. Then, I set up my iPhone to record and slipped it into my pocket. Next, I went to my closet and rummaged through my old footlocker. On top, there was a key taped to the back. I opened it up, and memories flooded back as I looked at my old uniforms. I realized I could still fit into them, even after 10 years. Underneath the uniforms, I found a bunch of filing folders, and below those, a box with my medals, rewards for my service during 2 tours in the Middle East. I quickly glanced at the medals, but that wasn't what I was after. Underneath them was what I was looking for. My Marine Corps Beretta 9mm, named Betsy. It was tucked away in a cloth-lined plastic pouch with 2 clips of bullets. Technically, I wasn't supposed to keep my pistol, but a mix-up when I was leaving the service allowed me to hang on to it. This tool meant a lot to me. It had saved my life more times than I could count in combat. As I loaded a clip, I heard Tracy calling from downstairs. "Get down here now, Blake, or you'll regret it." "I'll be right down. Can you grab me a beer?" I called back. I slid the tool into my belt at the small of my back and covered it with my shirt. It was a double-action semi-automatic pistol, so all I had to do was pull the trigger to fire. Unless someone was specifically looking, they wouldn't notice it. Before leaving the bedroom, I pulled out my phone, started recording, and slipped it back into my pocket with the camera peeking out. I wanted to know exactly what Tracy and her boss had planned for me, so I decided to use some of the interrogation techniques I'd learned in the Marines. I planned to stay calm and encourage Tracy to talk about how she saw things. When I got to the living room, Tracy was sitting at the table with a glass of wine in front of her and a beer waiting for me. "About time," she said sternly. "We've got some things to sort out before Stan gets here." "I can see you've got something on your mind, Tracy," I said. "Tell me about this new situation I'm supposed to accept." "First off, remember that I love you more than anything. We've got a family together and I want to grow old with you. I really don't want to hurt you, honey," she began, but I cut in. "No more sweet talk, Tracy. I'm not your honey or sweetheart. Just call me Blake, and I'll call you Tracy." Tracy seemed annoyed by my lack of affection, but she kept going. "Look, I don't want to hurt you, but things have changed as of tonight, and you've got to accept it, or else. You should know that Stan and I have gotten really close since he made me his personal assistant. And by that, I mean we're having an affair. It's been going on for almost 7 months now." He started flirting with me not long after I went back to work as a secretary. Then we started grabbing coffee together during breaks. When he promoted me to executive secretary, we started spending even more time together, and his flirting turned into seduction. It was flattering to have a powerful guy like him interested in me. One evening after work, he made his move in his office. He grabbed me, kissed my neck, and things escalated from there. He's good-looking, charming, and fit. It was hard to resist. We ended up on his couch, and he was a skilled lover. I enjoyed it so much I knew I didn't want to stop. "So, you didn't even think about being unfaithful or how it would affect me," I said. "I'm sorry, Blake, but no, I didn't. But that doesn't mean I don't love you. You're still the man I want to be with forever." I took a sip of my beer and said, "Good luck making that happen." "Tell me, Tracy," I pressed on. "Why, after 7 months of sneaking around, are you suddenly coming clean? You could have kept it going indefinitely, right under my nose. Until now, Blake, we've been keeping things under wraps, meeting up in Stan's office, his limo, and daytime hotel rooms. But we're tired of the secrecy. We want to be open about our relationship. That means spending nights together, going out in public, and traveling as a couple. But we need you on board with our lifestyle." I took another swig of my beer and replied, "Well, good luck with that." "No, Blake," Tracy leaned in, trying to hold my hands. "We're not getting divorced. We're staying married. You just have to accept that Stan and I will be spending a lot of time together. I'll be staying with him overnight a couple of nights a week. We'll take weekend trips, and I might even go on longer vacations with him to Europe or the Caribbean. And being his personal assistant means I'll get to travel with him, meet important people, and accompany him to business meetings and social events. Stan's paying me well. It'll be good for us. Think about the perks. Imagine the vacations, our kids' college funds, finally fixing up the lake cabin like we always wanted." I shot back. "Do you really think I'd want any of that paid for with Stanley's company 403? "I'm not 403, Tracy snapped back, her voice full of anger. "I'm an important part of the company. I'm the person Stan relies on as he runs his law firm. Closeness is just part of the deal when you're with a powerful guy like him. I'm honored that he'd want me as his mistress. And you should be too. And let's face it, this fling probably won't last forever. I'd say it'll run its course in 2 or 3 years tops. Then it'll be back to how it was before. I'll be your faithful wife again, and we'll enjoy our family for the next 50 years. And here's the thing, Stan wants to be buddies with you. He thinks we can share me as long as he gets what he wants and you play by his rules. He knows I love you and still want to be intimate with you. He even said you could have your moments with me. There'll just be some conditions. Since he'll be coming around to our house sometimes, he wants to be part of the family, maybe even like an uncle to our kids." Internally, I was boiling with anger, but I kept my cool outwardly. That a-hole will never lay eyes on my kids or talk to them. Ever! Got it? Then it hit me, and I had to ask, why does that a-hole want to be involved with my family anyway? Doesn't he have his own? Stan's married to a younger woman from a fancy family, Tracy explained. Their marriage is more about convenience, but she can't have kids, unfortunately. Maybe he should adopt and stay out of other people's lives, I said. Stan really wants his own kids, especially a son to carry on his legacy, Tracy added. He'd settle for a daughter too. Ideally, he wants one of each. Why doesn't that a-hole use a surrogate? Then he could have all the kids he wants, I suggested. He's thought about it, but he's worried he wouldn't be a good dad. He wants any kid he has to grow up in a loving family, Tracy explained. Then Tracy looked down. Oh God, here we go, I said, getting even more upset as Tracy's point hit me. Then it hit me. He wants to get you pregnant, doesn't he? And then he wants me to raise his kid. It wouldn't be his kid alone, Tracy insisted. It'd be mine too. And you'd love it because you love me. And the kid would have Cross as a last name. Stan would pay us a ton of money to raise his kid and cover all the expenses until they're done with college. Oh crap, are you already expecting? I blurted out. No, she replied. But he wants me to stop taking the pill in a few months. I told him I wanted you to agree to our new arrangement first. Just when I thought it couldn't get worse, I muttered to myself. Once more, I made it clear. Good luck with that. Tracy was mad. Stop saying that, she snapped. I know you're not on board now, Blake, but maybe you'll come around. Her words hit me hard. As I got up to confront her, the doorbell rang. Tracy rushed to answer it, letting her boss in. As he walked in, he grabbed her waist and gave her a kiss. This just keeps getting better, I grumbled to myself. How did he react? Cross asked Tracy. Not good. You might need to spell out the consequences if he doesn't cooperate, she replied. I heard him say, then we'll go to plan B, shock and awe. Stan was a big guy, taller and heavier than me at 5'11". I couldn't figure out what Tracy saw in him. Maybe his long graying hair gave him a distinguished look. He seemed confident in his black suit and had a commanding presence. He walked right up to me, invading my personal space. Mr. Ramsey, we need to talk, he said. Talk? I will off you, I shot back. You could try, but my driver would probably stop you before you got far. By tonight, you'd be in jail. So sit down, he ordered. I glanced out the door to see a big guy waiting on my doorstep. I wasn't scared, but I wanted to hear him out, so I reluctantly sat down. Good, now we can talk like grown-ups. When your wife became my personal assistant, it included some extra duties. Yeah, I'm talking about closeness. I've been with your wife for the last 6 months, but we're tired of sneaking around. You and Tracy are going to have a new arrangement. As my assistant, she'll take care of my needs, both professional and personal. Mr. Ramsey, you'll still be Tracy's husband. Your role as a dad won't change, except for one thing. I'll be taking care of Tracy's needs. Most of the time, that'll happen at a hotel or my office. But sometimes when you're not around, we might use your bed. You a hole! Why would I put up with this? I'd rather divorce her cheating behind, I spat back. Mr. Ramsey, that kind of talk won't help. Remember who I am. I'm a big-shot lawyer with the city's top law firm. If you try to divorce her, you'll pay. And not just in court. We'll take everything from you, make you pay alimony and child support while she's still with me. Your son and daughters? You won't see them much, if at all. You'll be accused of child offense, go to jail, and lose custody forever. Your job? Gone? Your family and friends? They'll turn their backs on you. I sat there in shock, speechless. I never imagined Tracy and this a-hole would go this far for their affair. Stan went on. Now I know you won't do anything stupid. If you try to tell my wife, you'll regret it. My driver and his pals will make sure of that. If you try to skip town, my investigators will find you. So just accept this new deal. Your wife's a great assistant. He leaned in. And she's pretty good with her mouth, too. I turned to Tracy. Would you really do all that to me? I hope not, Blake, but as long as you cooperate, I won't have to. Eventually, you'll get used to it, and it'll seem normal, she said calmly. Still reeling, I watched as they headed for the door. But before they left, I had something to say. Wait, I've got something you need to hear. Annoyed, the jerk rolled his eyes. What is it, and make it quick? I took a breath. Once I've had a few drinks and mourned my marriage, I'm calling your wife to spill everything. Turning to Tracy, I said, after that, I'm calling your sister Lucy to spill the beans, and I'll let her break it to your folks. Stan seemed puzzled, not used to facing resistance when he tried to strong-arm someone. What was that? He questioned. Without repeating myself, I went on. Bright and early Saturday, I'm getting a locksmith to change all the locks. Now Tracy was paying close attention, trying to grasp the situation. After the locks are swapped, I'm heading over to Kate's place down the street. She's been flirting with me shamelessly since her husband passed a few months back. She's older than you and not a supermodel, but she's got a killer body. Even modeled a bikini for me once. Until an hour ago, I wouldn't have thought of seeing anyone else, but things change, don't they? Tracy looked hurt and stammered. Blake, you can't do that. I went on. When you two get back Sunday, you'll find all Tracy's stuff in the front yard. Every last bit of it. Clothes, shoes, makeup, jewelry, even our wedding album. And no, not in garbage bags. Better hurry to pick them up before the sprinklers hit at 4 a.m. Monday. Now, Stan was getting angry. His face turned red, fists clenched, realizing his threats meant nothing. Tracy looked pained. One more thing, I added, wrapping up. Monday, I'm seeing a divorce lawyer. Filing for divorce on grounds of cheating, naming you, Stanley, as a co-conspirator. Plus, suing you for messing with our marriage and your firm for breaking company rules, assuming a big outfit like yours has any. Even if the lawsuits flop, they'll still put a dent in your rep, Stanley. The jerk was livid. He hurled the overnight bag at the wall and marched toward me, invading my space again. He jabbed my chest hard with 2 fingers. I had to really hold myself back from hitting back. Listen, you fool, he began. You don't have a clue who you're messing with or how ruthless I can be when I want to destroy someone. I'm Stanley Cross. I run the biggest law firm around here. I could tear you apart legally in no time. By the time Tracy and I check into our hotel, you'll be in handcuffs for all sorts of charges. You might think you can fight back if you're innocent. You can't. I've been practicing law in this state for 30 years. I know most of the top cops personally, and I'm buddy-buddy with a bunch of lawyers in the DA's office. Heck, I've even slept with a few. Most of the judges in this city either owe me big favors or know I've got dirt on them. Even the politicians owe me because I've helped them get elected one way or another. Stanley was really on a rant, and I didn't want to interrupt. If you go out with your friend Kate tomorrow, the cops will pull you over and find some reason to search your car. They'll probably find pills. Then the Vice Squad will get a tip about offensive videos with minors on your computer. And that's just the start. How long and expensive do you think it'll be to fight all that? You won't find a lawyer brave enough to take me on. You'll be ruined. Meanwhile, I'll still be with your wife. Got it, fool? I believe every word you say, jerk. Stanley turned to me again. You need to show me some respect. Call me sir or Mr. Cross. Call me a hole one more time, and Max here will teach you some manners. When he said this, he slapped me twice with his right hand to make his point clear. The second time, I grabbed his hand with my left and in one swift move, snapped all his fingers backward until they were touching his wrist, and I held them there. Cross was caught off guard. For a moment, he seemed stunned, staring at his hand in disbelief. Then the pain hit him, and he let out a loud cry. I pushed him away, and he fell onto the couch. Tracy rushed to his side to help. He unfolded his fingers, clutching his flattened hand to his chest, and rocked back and forth in agony. You cursed bastard! You'll regret this! I'll make you pay! Remembering his bodyguard waiting outside, he shouted, Max, get in here! The front door swung open, and Max entered. He was huge, resembling a tough guy from an old 1940s movie, exuding strength. Yes, Mr. Cross, Max acknowledged. Cross gestured to me with his uninjured hand and commanded, Take care of him, Max. Yes, Mr. Cross, Max replied, moving across the living room toward me. Tracy attempted to object, but Cross brushed her aside. I had expected a confrontation like this when Tracy mentioned Cross would bring his bodyguard. I knew I might face some rough treatment. This was going to be tough, though. Hardly anyone knows that I was a POW. It lasted only 17 days, but it was enough to earn me the POW medal. During my captivity, I was the only American they could get their hands on, and they took out their hatred on me. But I learned something. I can endure offense. The real torture came from hanging from a beam in my cell, arms pulled painfully tight behind me. The agony was unbearable and ceaseless. So compared to that, taking a beating was a piece of cake. I stood my ground, offering no resistance as Max swung his massive hand. His blow landed square on my nose, sending me crashing into the coffee table, dazed. Clearly injured, I could see Max hesitating, unsure if he should continue. He looked to Cross for direction. Hurt him, Max! Hurt him real bad! Cross ordered. Max seized me by the hair, lifting me up and delivering another blow, this time to my left eye. I collapsed once more, my vision blurred. Realizing I couldn't endure more without losing consciousness, I quipped up at Max. You hit like a girl. His pride wounded, Max grabbed my hair again, preparing for another strike. but he was in for a surprise when I shot him in the foot. This startled everyone in the room. Max recoiled in pain, stumbling backward until he landed in my favorite leather chair. Meanwhile, I fell to the ground. As Max reached for his own tool, I warned him, "Don't do it, Max." When he ignored my warning and reached for his tool, I fired again. He dropped his tool, screaming in agony. I crawled over, disarmed him, asking, "How many men have you ended, Max?" Feeling the heat against his temple, Max shook his head, indicating he'd never removed anyone. I reminded him that I'd taken down 27 men, all soldiers fighting for their beliefs. Then I asked, "How much respect do you think I have for you?" Max shook his head from side to side once more. "That's right, Max. None," I replied. "So there isn't much reason I shouldn't off you, is there?" Max pleaded. "I have a family." I retorted, "Well, Max, I have a family too, and you didn't seem to care much about mine. Maybe your family would be better off if you were gone." "Please," he begged. Glancing at Max's shoulder, I remarked, "I shot you right through the shoulder joint, Max. You're gonna bleed out if I don't get you to a doc within an hour or so. But don't worry, those orthopedic surgeons can fix anything with all their plastic and ceramic replacement bones they use. You might have to learn to use your left hand for some things like eating, writing, or shooting. But you'll probably have mobility issues with that arm for the rest of your life. And if you ever feel pain in that arm again, think of me. And if I ever see you again, I'll assume you're out to hurt me and I won't hesitate to finish you. Got it?" Max nodded in understanding. I pulled his shoulder forward to inspect the wound. Max winced in pain. "Damn, Max," I lamented. "The bullet went clean through your shoulder and my favorite chair, and you're bleeding all over it. I don't know if I can clean it up or fix the hole. If I have to replace the chair, I'll be even more pissed than I am now." Toying with Max for so long was a mistake. Leaving an enemy behind me was a bigger one. Tracy's warning snapped me back to reality. "Blake, watch out!" I turned just in time to see Cross swinging a fireplace poker at my head. Luckily, my arm blocked most of the blow, but it broke my forearm. With my tool knocked away, Cross went for it, but I hit him hard in the groin. He fell to the ground in agony. I grabbed my 9mm and pinned him down. "Open your mouth," I ordered. Cross refused to comply. He clenched his lips and shook his head, signaling his defiance. So, I struck hard, causing a deep cut on his lip. His mouth opened and I forced the tool down his throat, making it hard for him to breathe. "How's that for my version of shock and awe, huh?" I taunted. "If you heard what I told Max, you'd know I've officially destroyed 27 men in combat. 7 of them met their end with this magnum. And before you think of resisting too much, know that this tool only needs 4 ounces of pressure on the trigger, and I've already got 2 ounces, I warned. With that, Cross ceased his struggling. "Now, where's your cell phone?" I demanded. Cross indicated it was in his left breast pocket. I retrieved it. "Turn it on," I ordered. Using his thumbprint, Cross powered on the phone. "Now call your wife on FaceTime," I instructed. Cross's eyes widened, but he complied. After a few rings, a woman answered. "Stanley, why are you calling me at this hour? And who is this?" The woman questioned, alarmed by the sight of a red face she didn't recognize. "Mrs. Cross," I began. "My name's Blake Ramsey. You might not know me, but you probably know my wife, Tracy Ramsey. She works as your husband's personal assistant." "I know Tracy," Mrs. Cross acknowledged. "What's going on? Why are you hurt and where's my husband?" "I'm holding your husband down, Mrs. Cross, with a tool in his mouth," I revealed, angling the phone to show her Cross's face. "Oh my God," she exclaimed. "Please don't hurt him." "Listen, Mrs. Cross, time's short. Your husband and my wife have been having an affair for months. Today, they plan to spend the weekend in a hotel. When I objected, your husband had his goon beat me up. Sadly, I had to shoot him, and now your husband's next," I informed her. "My husband's supposed to be at our place in Palm Springs working on a case," Mrs. Cross stated. "He's right here on my floor, Mrs. Cross. And meet my wife, Tracy." I showed her Tracy, looking scared on the sofa. "As you can see, my wife's all dressed up, ready for a night out with your husband," I pointed out. "This is unbelievable," Mrs. Cross reacted. "I was shocked too," I added. "Gotta go, Mrs. Cross. Cops are coming. Nice chatting," I ended the call. "Back to you, a-hole. Your wife's got a hint now. What was your plan? Send Max and pals to rough me up?" I asked, glancing at Max. "Max needs some time off," I remarked. I warned him, "Send anyone, I'll off 'em, then come for you. Got it?" Cross nodded, and I withdrew it. Suddenly, I smelled something foul. "Did you crap yourself?" I chuckled. "Now I need a new carpet." "Pass me my briefcase, Tracy," I requested. She handed it over, and I pulled out my laptop. "Was this your stash?" I asked, aiming at the laptop's hard drive. Cross was screaming, covering his ear, likely with a ruptured eardrum. I leaned close to his ear and said, "Good luck using that computer now, a-hole." Then I got off Cross and told him to sit on the sofa. He obeyed, still clutching his groin and ear. I instructed Tracy to grab a wet towel from the kitchen and help Max with his bleeding shoulder. She rushed to get it and came back quickly to assist Max. After that, I warned everyone to stay put while I went to clean up in the kitchen. With my phone still recording, I realized I had to hide it to prevent the police from deleting the footage as Cross had connections. I stashed it in a pile of dish towels in a drawer. Then, I wiped my face with a wet towel. Returning to the living room, everyone was still in place. Cross was in pain, Tracy helping Max. I told them to wait for the cops, who'd be here soon with an ambulance. Outside, my neighbors had heard the noises. I confirmed it and asked if anyone had dialed 911. Two had. One of my neighbors was retired Marine Colonel Orson Sage. We were close friends who often shared a beer. He called me Captain, and I called him Colonel. "Are you okay, Captain?" the Colonel asked. "I've seen better days," I replied. Sirens wailed in the distance, signaling the police's imminent arrival. "Colonel," I called, "can you help me out?" "Sure thing, Captain," he said, stepping onto my porch. "First, can you help me unload these magnums and put them on the table? I don't want to be holding one when the cops show up." The Colonel took it and quickly made them safe. Then, he placed them on the porch table. Kate, a widowed neighbor from up the street, noticed my injuries and came over to help. Turning to the Colonel and Kate, I said, "I wish I could explain everything, but time's short. My wife's boyfriend, a lawyer, threatened to frame me with pills." I handed the Colonel my keys. "After all this, if the garage isn't taped off, hide my car. The garage code is our street address." "Got it, Captain," he replied. Kate interjected, "You look really rough, Blake." "My head's pounding and I'm feeling dizzy," I admitted. "Guess I took a harder hit than I thought." With Kate's help, I sat on the porch steps when two police cars showed up, lights flashing and sirens blaring. They cautiously approached, hands on their tools, but the Colonel assured them there was no threat, pointing to the unloaded tools on the porch. I told them about the three individuals inside. A police officer noticed my condition and said, "Looks like you need some medical attention too." Soon, two ambulances arrived, lights flashing and sirens blaring. Emergency technicians hurried to the porch while another officer informed them about the injured man inside. As my dizziness worsened, Kate urged me to lie down while an EMT checked my face. I mentioned my possibly broken forearm. Later, in a haze, I saw Max being wheeled out on a stretcher and Cross being helped into an ambulance. Tracy, escorted by a female officer, stopped nearby, crying and apologizing profusely, but I rejected her, saying, "Go to hell, Tracy," before she was taken away. I either passed out or received pain medication, remaining unconscious for 3 days. When I woke up, a nurse named Rose greeted me kindly. Alone in the room, I assessed my injuries: a cast on my right forearm, gauze and tape on my left eye and nose. Besides that, I seemed okay, connected to various machines. Dr. York kept me sedated for a possible minor concussion, giving me something to sleep until morning. I woke up to find my left wrist cuffed to the bed rail. Detective Sergeant Hardman explained I was under arrest for multiple charges, including offense and magnum use. He mentioned my wife and 2 others had filed the complaint. After he left, Rose confirmed she knew about it. Dr. York assured my recovery and informed me of my transfer to a new ward. A few days later, a lawyer named Sam Wilton visited, suggesting I plead guilty to negotiate with the DA. I insisted on my innocence and asked about my kids, who were with my wife's sister. I couldn't believe how my life had suddenly changed, worrying about my broken marriage, my children, and my job. I provided Sam with my company's contact information and requested him to inform my boss about the situation. Upon reviewing the charges against me, I questioned the spousal offense charge mentioned by Detective Sergeant Hardman. Sam clarified that Stanley Cross had included it in his complaint, alleging multiple instances of violence against Tracy, supported by photographic evidence of her injuries. Despite my denial of the accusations, Sam suggested considering a plea deal at the arraignment to potentially mitigate the severity of the charges. However, I expressed concerns about admitting guilt, fearing possible civil repercussions from the witnesses involved. In response to the looming legal battle, I requested Sam to reach out to my uncle, Jonathan Allen Carter, a retired Navy lawyer renowned for his expertise in family law. I emphasized the need for discretion, as I didn't want my intentions revealed prematurely. After Sam coordinated with Uncle Jack, it was agreed that he would provide legal assistance. Sam assured me that Uncle Jack emphasized the importance of maintaining confidentiality regarding the case details. During the arraignment conducted via hospital TV, I entered a plea of not guilty to all charges. Despite the prosecutor's push for no bail, the judge decided to keep me in the hospital for 2 additional days before proceeding with a hearing to determine whether I would stand trial. The day before I went to jail, Uncle Jack came. He was officially my lawyer now and could visit me. Seeing him was a huge relief. I hugged him, feeling emotional. I hadn't realized how much I needed support until then. After catching up, Uncle Jack got serious. He wanted to talk privately and filled me in on some details. He'd spoken with Lucy briefly and assured me the kids were okay with her until things settled. Lucy was puzzled by Tracy's version of events and was grateful Uncle Jack was there for me. Then Uncle Jack wanted to know exactly how I ended up in this mess. I confided in him, explaining everything that happened. He found it unbelievable. I also told him about the different story Stanley Cross, Max Angel, and Tracy had concocted after my arrest. In a hushed tone, I revealed to Uncle Jack that I had everything on video with my iPhone, hidden at home. Though he didn't show much emotion, I sensed relief in him knowing there might be evidence backing up my story. Uncle Jack promised to support me throughout this ordeal. He said my main focus should be on recovering while he worked on my case and looked into bail options. I agreed, asking him to keep an eye on my kids. He promised to stay in touch through Lucy. After leaving the hospital, I was taken to jail. 3 days went by with no word from Uncle Jack. Finally, I faced a judge, with Uncle Jack there. He fought for my bail, but I ended up on house arrest. Uncle Jack had arranged a place for me in a gated community where I'd stay with him. However, I couldn't leave the area. Uncle Jack had plans in motion, but he kept most of them secret until they unfolded. He hired private investigators to help him and set them to work on several leads. Retrieving my phone from my kitchen drawer posed a major challenge due to the restraining order preventing me from accessing my house. Uncle Jack refused to break in, hoping for a solution to arise. In the meantime, he arranged a new cell phone account for us both for communication. I contacted my neighbor, the Colonel, to update him on my situation. He shared concerning activities around my house. Uncle Jack suggested inviting the Colonel over for beers and barbecued steaks to discuss further. The Colonel recounted an incident he witnessed shortly after the altercation. He spotted individuals near my garage, called 911, and confronted them with an aluminum bat. Despite threats, they fled in a black SUV, their faces captured in a photo. The Colonel also observed Tracy conversing with men near the garage shortly after she returned to the house, noting down the SUV's license plate. Uncle Jack investigated the license plate linked to Unique Services, a private investigation firm owned by Jose Gonzalez and Miguel Ortego, both with questionable law enforcement backgrounds. Notably, Unique Services counted Stanley Cross's law firm among its clients. Retrieving my cell phone from my house kitchen became urgent. Uncle Jack devised a plan to meet with Tracy under the guise of mediation, with her lawyer's associate present. At 6 p.m., Uncle Jack arrived and was greeted warmly by Tracy, joined by Gordon Merritt from Cross's law firm. After introductions, they settled in the family room to discuss matters, both recording the conversation. Uncle Jack expressed regret and subtly questioned my account of events. He continued, mentioning my claim about Tracy and Mr. Cross having an affair and how I reacted angrily upon seeing them together. Mr. Merritt interjected, suggesting that the evidence seemed stacked against me. Uncle Jack then proposed that Mr. Merritt testify that I may not have been in the right state of mind during the incident, given my belief that Mr. Cross was taking Tracy away. He emphasized my previous good behavior as a husband and father. After considering it, Mr. Merritt proposed that they might entertain such a suggestion if I were to plead guilty to the charges against me. Uncle Jack asked, "Are you suggesting all the charges? Or is there a chance some could be reduced or dropped?" "I'll need to discuss with Mr. Cross. He's influential with the DA's office. Maybe we can find a solution to make this go away. It's not just for Mr. Ramsey's sake, but being caught in a high-profile legal mess isn't good for Mr. Cross either. It damages his reputation and business." "That's all I came to say, Tracy. Thanks for meeting with me. Blake wants you to tell the kids he misses and loves them." Tracy appeared moved by this, her eyes getting teary. Before Uncle Jack turned off his recorder, he added, "If I can prove Blake's story, you could face charges like perjury and obstruction of justice, which carry jail time." Just as Gordon Merritt was about to speak, Uncle Jack turned to him. "And you, counselor, if I can show you knew your client and Mr. Cross were lying, you could also face legal consequences. Before you respond, discuss it between yourselves." With that, Uncle Jack grabbed his recorder and got up. While you chat, mind if I grab some water? No, go ahead, Uncle Jack. Kitchen's that way. Tracy gestured toward the dining room door. There's ice water in the fridge if you want. In the kitchen, Uncle Jack ensured he couldn't be seen, then located my iPhone in a drawer by the sink. After pocketing it, he poured himself some ice water from the fridge. After a couple of minutes, he returned to the family room. Before I go, Tracy, anything you want to add? Tracy nervously glanced at Gordon Merritt, who spoke up for her. At this moment, Mr. Carter, we have nothing more to add. We'll inform you of any changes to Mr. Ramsey's charges, and we expect your cooperation if you want to resolve this matter. Uncle Jack concluded, That's fair enough. Thank you for meeting with me, Tracy. Mr. Merritt, I'll see you in court. Uncle Jack didn't bring the iPhone to the townhouse. Instead, he arranged for Digital Analysis Solutions, DAS, to examine its contents. He briefed the DAS director on the case's background and the importance of the video-audio recording for my defense. DAS assured Uncle Jack they'd handle it carefully and promised to provide their analysis in a few days. Later, Uncle Jack and I visited the DAS offices for their report. DAS transferred everything from my iPhone to their server. They found the video and made multiple copies stored on DVDs, flash drives, and in the cloud to ensure its safety. Uncle Jack and I watched the video together for the first time. It captured all the conversations between Tracy, Cross, and me before the offense. Though parts were shaky during Max's attack, it clearly showed I was defending myself. Some sections were unclear visually, but the audio provided a clear picture of the events. Luckily, it also showed Max pulling out his magnum on me. We thought the briefing was done, but the DAS director said there was more. Besides the usual stuff on my phone like pictures, contacts, emails, and texts, there were 97 new emails and 64 text messages I hadn't seen. DAS checked them out without opening, and most were legit from friends and family. But one was shady, with 27 photos of kids. If I had opened it, those pics would have ended up on my phone. When I trashed my computer, I said, Cross couldn't plant those pics there, so he tried on my phone. Uncle Jack and I thanked DAS for their help and left my phone with them. We took copies of the video home. Later, Uncle Jack got thoughtful. What's on your mind, Uncle Jack? I asked. I'm thinking about our next move, he replied. We could show this to the DA now and likely get the charges dropped against you. Plus, Cross, Max, and Tracy might face some heat. But if Cross has the pull, we think the whole thing might vanish. What's our other choice? I wondered. Reflectively, Uncle Jack responded, we could hold off until the hearing. The prosecutor would likely put all the conspirators on the stand to tell their side, and then we could present ours. The DA would have to go after them for conspiracy, lying under oath, and other charges. They'd be looking at some serious jail time. And I'd have a shot at getting my kids back, I pondered. So what's your call? We could wrap this up quickly, or drag them through a lengthy trial implicating them all in a big conspiracy, he proposed. I'm all in for taking them down, I decided without hesitation. I was hoping you'd say that, Blake. I've always wanted to expose them publicly and turn the tables on them in court, just like Perry Mason, Uncle Jack admitted. It struck me as amusing that even a seasoned lawyer like Uncle Jack had his share of whimsical aspirations. We awaited the hearing scheduled in 3 weeks, with Uncle Jack preparing his case diligently. He cautioned against revealing our trump card, the video, too early to prevent its suppression by the prosecution. So we kept it under wraps until the hearing. A week before the hearing, Uncle Jack returned home to San Francisco for other obligations. During his absence, I received a call from the gatehouse guard informing me that Tracy Ramsey claimed to be my wife. After consulting Uncle Jack, who advised me to remain calm and respectful, I allowed Tracy in, despite acknowledging her toxicity to me. As I awaited her arrival, I tidied up the townhouse, then greeted Tracy at the door. Despite my reservations, I couldn't help but notice her effort in appearance, wearing a stylish outfit with subtle makeup. Come on in, Tracy, I welcomed. You look wonderful. Thank you, Blake, she responded. You look quite fit and handsome. I've been hitting the exercise room here regularly, I explained, and I've been watching what I eat, mostly sticking to fruits, veggies, and avoiding junk. I continued. Please, have a seat on the sofa. Can I get you a glass of white wine? I was trying to be hospitable. Returning from the kitchen with our drinks, we took a few sips before I asked why she wanted to meet. Despite everything, Blake, I still love you just as much, she confessed. I never thought things would spiral like this. I know what you wanted, I retorted. You wanted me to accept Cross's lifestyle. It seemed easy enough. You could have been the cold, and I could have had fun with Cross, she explained. We could have made good money, and eventually, things would have gone back to normal. I ruined your plans, huh? I said sarcastically. Actually, those plans were more Cross's doing. He thought he could intimidate you into going along, she admitted. Neither of us expected you to react so aggressively. It was unlike you, considering how laid back and easygoing you usually are. I guess that's why he thought I was easy to manipulate, I guessed. You don't know how scared I was when I saw how violent you became, Tracy admitted. It's a side of me I've been trying to bury. It's been hidden since my days as a Marine in the Middle East. That's not who I am now, I explained. Out of nowhere, Tracy asked, "Where's your car?" I'm not exactly sure. When Cross threatened to plant pills in it, I took it seriously and had it moved to a place he wouldn't find. I chuckled. About those men at the house after you moved back in, what were they up to? They seemed too interested in the garage and my missing car, I inquired. Tracy reluctantly confessed, I think they wanted to plant evidence in your car. I didn't want them to, but Stanley insisted we had to frame you. You don't seem to care about piling evidence against me. Your story could land me in prison. If you really love me, just tell the truth, and the DA will drop the charges, I pleaded. I can't, Blake. I'm in too deep. Stanley's too influential, she reasoned. Sounds like bad luck for me, I remarked. Then I asked, what's this charge of offending you? From the pictures, it looks like you had cuts and bruises. I never laid a hand on you. That was Stanley's plan. As soon as you stepped out, he concocted an alternate version. He said you accused us of having an affair, then started hitting me. When he intervened, a fight broke out. He claims you broke his nose, blackened his eye, and shot Max before he could help. To make it believable, he hit me a few times, Tracy confessed. I'm sorry, Blake, Tracy sobbed. I never wanted this. I just want things to go back to how they were between us. Well, that's not possible, I replied firmly. There's a way out, Blake, Tracy said earnestly. Stanley knows all about your past as a hero, your struggles with PTSD. He wants you to plead guilty based on that. He says he can use his influence to get you committed to a VA hospital for treatment. Afterward, we could start fresh, just us and the kids. So, that was her plan, to convince me to accept a plea deal for a reduced sentence. I pretended to consider it. That sounds promising, Tracy, but I need some time to think. And I have to talk to Uncle Jack about it too. He's not had much luck finding evidence to help me. Do it for yourself, Blake, she urged. For us and the kids. It'll all be behind us in a few years. I highly doubt that, I retorted. You cheated on me, wanted me to accept your affair, threatened to take my kids, and now you're framing me. That's more than a bump in the road. That's why Stanley's offer is the best way out for everyone, Tracy insisted, tearful. I'll think about it, I said, ending the discussion. I suggested she leave. But she wanted to stay, suggesting we forget our problems for a while. Not happening, Tracy, I said firmly. I stood firm, and Tracy got the message. Please consider Stanley's offer, she urged. I walked her to the door. Before leaving, she hugged me. It felt genuine, but I didn't hug back. The hearing aimed to decide if I'd face trial. The prosecution seemed confident. They put Cross, Max, and Tracy on the stand, each recounting their rehearsed versions of events. Uncle Jack asked them only one question. Do you swear your testimony is true? They all affirmed. Uncle Jack wanted to expose Jose and Miguel, too, but proving their involvement in framing me wasn't relevant to my charges. Their attempts failed anyway. When the prosecution finished, it was Uncle Jack's turn. With the court's permission, he began, we'd like to submit a video of the events. It proves my client's innocence. The ADA objected, claiming it was new evidence. There's a reason for that, Uncle Jack explained. We fear bias against my client. Do you have evidence of bias? The judge asked. It's in the video, Your Honor, Uncle Jack replied. The judge suggested reviewing it in chambers, but Uncle Jack refused. Why not? The judge demanded. We don't trust the court's impartiality, Uncle Jack asserted. Are you accusing the court of corruption? The judge asked, growing irritated. Potentially, Your Honor, Uncle Jack responded. Can you prove your claim, Mr. Carter, or is that evidence also in the video? As a matter of fact, it is, Your Honor, but I'd like to illustrate what I mean if you'll answer a few questions. So, let me get this straight, Mr. Carter. You believe you can show this court is biased against your client by asking me questions. Is that right? Yes, Your Honor, Uncle Jack affirmed. All right, Mr. Carter, go ahead with your questions. But if you can't prove your point, we'll review the tape privately and I'll decide its admissibility. I agree, Your Honor. But I must warn you, If this video isn't allowed in court and my client is convicted based on the prosecution's witnesses, I'll share it with the media. Furthermore, the evidence on this video could raise doubts about your integrity for not showing it in court. I feel like I'm being threatened, Mr. Carter, the judge remarked. Without waiting for the judge to get angrier, Uncle Jack continued. Your oldest son is in college, right, Your Honor? He's at the Air Force Academy, isn't he? Yes, the judge replied. He's a freshman. Getting into the Air Force Academy is highly competitive, isn't it? The judge confirmed. First, your son had to apply through a congressman or senator. Then, he took a civil service exam. Based on that, he got a nomination along with 9 others. Afterward, he went through medical exams, fitness tests, and aptitude tests. Also, he had to take the SATs. Is that all correct, Your Honor? Yes, the judge answered. He was a good student and a swim team member in high school. You must be proud of him, Your Honor, Uncle Jack acknowledged. Get to your point, Mr. Carter, the judge urged. Your son's application package included 3 recommendation letters, correct? Yes, Mr. Carter. Who wrote those letters, Your Honor? Well, one was from his swim coach, and another was from his math teacher. And who wrote the 3rd letter, Your Honor? There was a pause, then the judge responded. Mr. Stanley Cross wrote my son a glowing recommendation for the Air Force Academy. Mr. Cross must have known your son well, unless he fabricated details, Uncle Jack noted. My son interned in Mr. Cross's office during high school summers. He aspires to be a lawyer, the judge explained. So Mr. Cross is more of a professional acquaintance than a family friend? Uncle Jack clarified. He's an acquaintance and a colleague in some legal groups I'm a part of, the judge clarified. Now, Your Honor, you can understand why the defense sees your impartiality differently, Uncle Jack concluded. You've placed my integrity under scrutiny, Counselor. While any connection with Mr. Cross wouldn't affect my decisions, you've made it a matter of perception, the judge responded. After a brief pause, the judge looked up and said, Play the video, Counselor. Uncle Jack signaled for the lights to dim and for screens to be lowered. He turned to me and whispered, Here we go, Blake, before starting the video. In court, the atmosphere tensed as Cross revealed his law enforcement ties, surprising the prosecution and causing an assistant ADA to leave in tears. Uncle Jack showed a video of Cross, Max, and Tracy, which they tried to leave during but were stopped by the judge. After the first video, Uncle Jack immediately played a second one, catching everyone off guard and revealing Tracy's unwitting admission recorded on my hidden iPhone. This prompted a recess and the ADA to review this new evidence. When court reconvened, the 3 prosecution witnesses were notably absent. Instead of a substitute district attorney, the county's actual district attorney was present. He wasted no time in addressing the court. Firstly, he began, all charges against Mr. Ramsey have been dropped. We believe he acted in self-defense against Mr. Cross and Mr. Angel. Although it was aggressive, it was justified. Secondly, my office has issued arrest warrants for Mr. Stanley Cross, Mr. Max Angel, and Mrs. Blake Ramsey for various offenses, including conspiracy, perjury, offense, making false statements, and obstruction of justice. Additionally, Mr. Cross's attempted planting of false evidence against Mr. Ramsey has been uncovered, with Mr. Angel and Mrs. Ramsey's complicity noted. We're also in the process of apprehending 2 individuals involved in these attempts. Stanley Cross, Max Angel, and my wife were all taken into custody but were later released on bail. The district attorney was furious to learn that his office had been influenced by Stanley Cross for years. He launched an investigation to identify and remove any colleagues with connections to Cross. All defendants found guilty, with Cross pleading innocence but Max and Tracy confessing against him. Cross got 11 years, Max 7, and Tracy 3, reduced from 5 after my testimony highlighting her warning about Cross's attack. Jose and Miguel obstructed justice and tampered with evidence, leading to their arrest for minors' video possession. Miguel confessed, both sentenced to long prison terms. Cross held in county jail, awaiting state prison transfer. Max and Tracy given 2 weeks to settle affairs before surrendering. Max prepares family for his absence, aiming for parole in 4 years. Tracy, with a shorter sentence, will serve in a rural jail annex, arranged by Uncle Jack. I let Tracy stay with the kids while I stayed elsewhere. She used the time to bond with them and explain her absence. The day before she surrendered, Tracy asked me to move in. When I arrived, she welcomed me, saying, "This is your home," dressed casually but composed, with a small bag by the door, joking about it being all she needed. In the kitchen, Tracy had a light breakfast ready. We talked about Lucy coming to take her to the sheriff's office at 11 a.m. She assured me that Lucy would help with the kids and encouraged me to accept her help. Tracy wanted me settled in before the kids got home from school, so their routine wouldn't be disrupted. She was unsure about visits while she was in prison, but promised to write often and asked me to have the kids write to her too. She had packed all her things in plastic bins and stored them in the basement. She left a family photo in each kid's room so they wouldn't forget her. Tracy mentioned she'd ordered a new king-size bed for the master bedroom, with new sheets and blankets, which had arrived recently and remained unused. The more she spoke, the more tears welled up in her eyes. Until now, we hadn't discussed our personal feelings. When she started to tidy up the table, I told her to hold off and suggested we go to the family room with our coffees. Glancing at her watch, she realized she didn't have much time left. Tracy seemed genuinely sorry. She reminded me of the woman I married, not the one influenced by Stanley Cross. "Blake," she began, "I can't express how sorry I am for what I did and how I treated you. You were an amazing husband, father, and provider. You were my best friend and a wonderful partner. I forgot that, until now. I take full blame for my actions. Even though Stanley Cross had a hold on me, I made the choices that led me astray. I'm so ashamed. Facing you now is tough, not just for you, but for our families, friends, and especially the kids. Part of me is relieved to go somewhere I won't have to face you or see your disappointment. I know you won't forget, but I hope with time, it'll fade, and you'll forgive me. That's what I'm holding on to now." Tracy finished speaking and wiped her tears, then stood to ask if I wanted more coffee. As she stood before me, I pulled her into a tight hug. She cried, and we held each other until she calmed down. When Tracy heard Lucy's car horn, she knew she had to leave. After wiping her tears, she grabbed her things and told me she loved me before departing. I stayed behind, organizing my belongings. A few hours later, Lucy called, offering her support. I welcomed her company, knowing we needed to discuss raising my kids together. Living without their mom, I took on the role of a single dad, ensuring Tyler, Beth, and Emily were okay. Lucy was a tremendous help, stepping into the mom role. We waited about a month before visiting Tracy. Lucy went first with the kids, returning excited about seeing Tracy. Lucy described a pleasant visiting area in the prison, easing our worries. 3 months into Tracy's sentence, I visited her. She seemed positive, especially around the kids, but privately, she still felt deep regret. During a visit, Tracy's friend Candy introduced herself. Nicknamed Dummy for her choices, Candy regretted her actions. A year passed, and Tracy might be eligible for parole soon. Uncle Jack suggested she pursue online paralegal courses at the University of Virginia, a promising career path given her legal background. Tracy agreed and enrolled. Meanwhile, Lucy and I worked on finding a place for Tracy to live after she got out. We found a small 2-bedroom townhouse with a garage nearby, close to the courthouse and law offices in the city. We bought it with the understanding that Tracy would pay us back eventually. On the day she was released, Lucy picked her up alone because of the paperwork. When they arrived at her new home, Tracy was overwhelmed, crying tears of joy. Her family and mine were there to welcome her, along with Uncle Jack and his wife. The kids gave her a tour of the house and cooked her dinner on the patio. Once she settled in, Tracy expressed her gratitude to everyone for accepting her despite her past. Uncle Jack helped set up job interviews for her with different law firms, and she was thankful for his support. After Tracy got settled and started working at the law firm Uncle Jack recommended, she invited me over for dinner. She made my favorite meal, meatloaf with potatoes and peas. During dinner, we avoided talking about the past and focused on other topics like the kids, work, and the weather. After dinner, we went to the family room where Tracy had soft background music playing from the TV's music channel. "I invited you over tonight, Blake," she began, "because I wanted to talk about us, or rather, you and me. What do you think will happen to us? I'm struggling to see what the future holds." "I don't have a crystal ball either, Tracy," I replied. "But here's what I think is most likely. We'll keep raising our kids together as a team. They need you just as much as they need me. Having you back home has lightened my load quite a bit. I have some free time now that I didn't have before, and I bet you'll enjoy having some free time without the kids around all the time. I've had a somewhat active social life, unlike you. Nothing too serious, but it's been nice to go out for dinner or a movie now and then. Once you're more settled, I think you'll enjoy being more socially active too." "Do you think you'd ever want to be with me again, permanently?" Tracy asked. "If you mean getting married again, then no," I said. "Too much has happened for me to consider marrying you again. But I've moved past what happened, and I look forward to always being friends without any romantic involvement. But that's as close as we'll ever be." Tracy looked down, tears welling up in her eyes. I didn't think so, but I had to ask. I think in the coming years I'll become more social and maybe even start dating more seriously, I continued. Eventually, I'll find someone I can love and ask her to marry me. She might be single, divorced, or widowed and may or may not have kids of her own, but I'll meet someone. The same goes for you, I said to Tracy. As you settle into your new life, you'll probably meet someone you can love too. And they'll probably ask you to marry them. But that doesn't mean we won't see each other often. We'll always have the kids to bring us together. We'll be there for birthdays, holidays, maybe even vacations. And in the future, there will be graduations and weddings. That's the best we can hope for in terms of being together. That's probably more than I deserve, Tracy said sadly. But I can accept that future. Before you leave, I want you to know how grateful I am for how you've treated me since I've been back home, she continued. You could have easily shut me out completely and kept the kids away from me, but you didn't. That's not who you are. It just makes me even more sorry for what I tried to do to you. As I opened the door to leave, I replied, You might not have noticed, Tracy, but I've forgiven you. I don't hold any grudges against you, and I hope, with time, you can forgive yourself. Maybe someday, but not anytime soon, Tracy responded. We hugged each other simultaneously, holding on to the embrace for several minutes without saying a word. Then I let go, stepped outside into the fresh air, found my car, and drove home, saying nothing more.